All right, so I have my painting, my digital painting here, and I like how it looks. So I did change a few things. I went in here and I changed my background, changed the circle at the top here. So I just lowered the opacity on it. It was previously at 100%. Thought that was too much, so I lowered it to 27%, and it gives it a little bit more blended look. And then I also changed this line right here. This was an orange, that first orange line I made it into a pinkish color. And and I took my paintbrush and I just kind of faded it out. So I just dragged up with my paintbrush, and it gives it a nice gradient, and it fades it into this line right here. So it's a little bit hidden. It looks like it might fall behind that circle. So again, that just adds to the overall blended feel of this. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some noise. I added or some grain effect to it. I give you the option of adding in a background, so you can go place embedded, and you can grab one of the painted backgrounds that I have. So wall texture. So maybe you want this texture. It looks better if you do it small than if you do it big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it a few times. So I rasterize it so that I can edit it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold down my Option key or my Alt key, and just duplicate it a few times, because I don't want the texture to be too large. And if I expanded it, it would have been a little bit too large. So then I just select all four of them by holding my Control key and clicking on them, and then I right click and say merge layers. So now I have a texture that's a little bit smaller, but it has a little bit more texture to it as opposed to being really blown out. I'll show you what it looks like if it's blown out. So if I just clicked on it and added it, all my texture is very large, and it doesn't look as nice when let's say I went to multiply. It doesn't look as nice. So if the texture is a little bit smaller, it looks a little bit better. So let me see, undo, free transform. So this is it, small, right? And I'm just gonna, now if I do my multiply and my textures on it, it looks a little bit nicer. So I can just go through here and see which ones I like. I think I suggest to do overlay or multiply, and you can lower the opacity a little bit. It also might look good if I have it at the bottom of the layers, right? So you can do that. You can use that texture if you like that. I prefer to do a little bit of my own type thing texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a gray layer because it's a pretty neutral color. And come over here, I'm zeroing out my cyan, zeroing out my magenta, my yellow, and I'm gonna make my black like 30. So it's a 30% gray or 30% black, so K stands for black, so click OK. And I'm just gonna delete my mask because I didn't use my layer mask, so I'm just deleting that. And next thing I want to do is I want to convert this to a smart filter so that I can use my filters on it. So convert to smart filter, click OK. So the idea behind a smart filter is it protects the image, the picture on that layer, so that you don't have to continue to go back and change it if you want to make changes later on. So if I didn't do this, I'd have to start over every time, but with the smart filter I just have to turn that layer on and off with the visibility button. So I'm gonna go here, filter, and there's filter gallery. There's lots of things in here like crackle, mosaic tile, and you can play with these. But you do it on a layer above the rest as like a generic layer, because you can do that multiply or that overlay, and you can play with the opacity and stuff, and it really is affecting the two layers underneath, but it's not affecting it to the point where I have to do it on each layer. So again, I'm just gonna turn that one off. I don't want that smart filter. Just turn that filter off, and I'm gonna go back to 100%. And I'm gonna go up here. This time I'm gonna go to blur gallery. I'm gonna click on field blur, and it brings me to this. So I field blur, and I'm gonna turn on iris blur as well. So field blur, I'm just gonna increase my amount of blur, and you can't see it's happening because I still have it on I still have it on overlay. I'm gonna go back to normal so that I can see these. So all I'm doing is I'm adding a amount of blur to the image. And you can change the size and everything. I really like some of the darker areas in there. All right, and I'm gonna click OK. And I might adjust it a little bit more. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find one that works well with this. Alright, so I have my mask here. So I went with my blur gallery and I changed it to linear light, and it gives me this nice, I think that's a nice look there. I changed it to 73% opacity. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some paint drips. I don't know where yet, but first thing I want to do is I want to go to my brushes. So I'm going to click on my brush and click on this menu right here, and I can just click right on this little gear and it'll take me to import brushes. So again, I'm going back to my folder where I have my brushes, and I have two brushes in there, drips and drips. I'm just going to click the first one. Let's see if I can click them both. I can click them both and click open. Right, and what that does, if I scroll down here, I should have paint drips. So I have different types of drips, and you can make that large. So I have different kinds of drips, and it's right now it's showing as a as the action. Let's see if I can change that. Brush. Yeah, so brush tip. By turning on tip, you're able to see what they actually look like. Because I don't want to actually use it as a dragging brush, but just more of like a spray can, just a burst of spray. So I'm clicking on this brush right here, and what I want to do is I want to go to, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm just going to select the colors on the screen by holding my option key or my alt key with my brush selected, and I'm going to choose that color, and I'm just going to add some spray to it. Right, so it allows me to add my drips in. So come down here, I'm going to select this color. And actually I'm going to make that one a little bit darker so that it stands out. And I'm going to hit spray. So this allows me to add some drips into the artwork, into different places. And you can experiment with this. Sometimes you think you like it, and then when you see it actually on the screen, it might not be exactly what you wanted. So like that one's a little bit too dark for me. So I'm going to lower my opacity when I'm spraying. Right, but adding some drips here and there has a nice effect. I'm going to do one down here. You know, it gives it a different feel, almost like it's more hand done. Again, going to that analog feel that we were talking about at the beginning of the year. So you can do this and go through them, figure out what you want to do. You don't have to do the drips, but if you really want to add a little bit of texture to it, it kind of helps. And again, I just did these on a different layer. So it's on this layer right here, so I can turn them on and off, and I can later on, if I want to get rid of some things, I can paint out what I don't want. So I'm gonna go here to my brushes, and I can just paint out the stuff that I don't want. So maybe this black is a little bit too much. Right, so a few drips here and there might work, might not work. Maybe that drip didn't work at all. Oh, actually, I like the off color blue. So I have a few drips showing right here, color change right there, color change right there, and I think I like this. I think I'm almost done. This one I think it's finished. So I don't think I can add much more without really kind of messing it up. So I'm gonna stop the video, and I hope that helped.